told you these remedies were safe. They told you they would cure you. We must examine the information they are presenting.
Every headline shifts, change the name, repeat. Clarity in the chaos, cut it to the core, Everything they bury, rising to the surface. Design again, different words, same line. Blur it till it fades, hide it in plain sight. Clarity in the chaos, cut it to the core, distill it down. Says it all in the chaos.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Doses Distilled, Clarity in the Chaos. Today is Friday, May the 1st, 2026. Happy Friday, everybody. How are you doing this Friday, Patrick?
Absolutely fantastic. It's a beautiful day here in Houston. And, and I'm just excited to talk about the deception in the medical industry.
Yeah. So if you guys are coming in on Rumble, if you would please hit that thumbs up and be sure not to miss your weekly update by hitting that little bell and subscribing to the channel. If you're watching on X, just hit that little heart and consider sharing the show. Want to give a shout out to Magadai in the chat for moderating. Thank you so much. We are grateful. Patrick and I both want to express our sincerest gratitude to the Mr. Leota for that amazing new intro video that we have to the show. Thank you, Mr. Leota. That's pretty cool. Let's see. Patrick, it's May Day.
I know, it's International Communism Day.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because I had a little memory today of being a kid growing up in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to actually have this spring festival thing on May Day, and they called it the May Day Festival. And we did things like this. Did you dance around the maypole when you were a kid?
No, I did not. I did know what a maypole was, so I think we were in the same general vicinity.
There we go. Yeah. I remember doing this silly maypole dance, and you had to go over and under, and it was weird. It was weird. And then I found out what we were actually celebrating. It was a little disturbing. Right? All right, let's get to work. We got an hour. Let's get through this. All right. So on Wednesday, Senator Ron Johnson had a hearing for the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, and that hearing was titled Unmasked: How Biden Health Officials Purposely Turned a Blind Eye Toward COVID-19 Vaccine Safety Signals. So Ron Johnson claimed that Biden health officials, the FDA and the CDC, knew early on that their main vaccine safety monitoring system was missing serious problems with the COVID vaccines. Right after the vaccines rolled out in early 2021, a senior FDA doctor, Dr. Anna Sarfman, reported to Dr. Peter Marks, and he was the director of CBER, and that stands for the Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research, and they're actually responsible for vaccine safety. Well, she reported that the monitoring system was blinded by the huge number of COVID vaccine reports. And so the FDA actually kind of uses a computer program and it looks for patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And if one vaccine is showing a lot more reports, then it raises that red flag. Well, the problem with the COVID vaccines was that there were actually two at the same time, Pfizer and Moderna. And the sheer volume.
Johnson and Johnson.
Right. But at that point they had pulled Johnson and Johnson off. So
Right.
all of the reports coming in were the Pfizer and Moderna, and they were essentially the sheer data volume was hiding or masking some of the data. So Dr. Sarfman and a statistician, they went and created a better program that unmasked all that hidden data. So in March of 21, she presents to Dr. Peter Marks, head of CBER, dozens of new warning signs for the COVID vaccines, things like sudden cardiac death, myocarditis, which for you, that's inflammation of the muscle part of the heart, Bell's palsy, which is a sudden paralysis of one side of the face because of inflammation of a facial nerve.
Mm-hmm.
Others warnings were heart attacks, strokes, blood clots, even fatal pulmonary clots, and dementia. She kept sending these updates through the summer of 2021, showing even stronger signals. Dr. Peter Marks, the director of CBER, directed her to stop, expressing concerns, get this, about, quote, anti-vaccine rhetoric.
Okay.
And did not adopt any of the improved monitoring. The FDA even stopped sharing some safety reports with the CDC when Congress and the public started asking questions. So what we learned this past week was that early warning signs were known inside the FDA by the spring of 2021, but no clear public warnings were given. Johnson was quoted saying, Biden health officials knew that safety signals for COVID-19 injection injuries were being hidden by their VAERS analytic algorithm. They were shown an updated algorithm that signaled serious adverse events, but they refused to use it. Their cover-up jeopardized the health of millions of Americans. So I do have a video. This was taken the day after his hearing. Let's take a listen.
In the documents provided us by Bobby Kennedy's Radical Transparency, the fact that Peter Marks, who's head of CBER, was told on March 1st of 2021 that the mathematical algorithm they were using to analyze the VAERS data was going to hide safety signals. He was told this. And then 26 days later, they used an updated algorithm that unmasked those, told there were 49 cases of severe masking, 25 safety signals of serious adverse events. I mean, sudden cardiac death, pulmonary infarction. I listed about 10 of the 25. Yeah. And rather than put a medal on Dr. Anna Scharfman, on her suit coat, they shunned her aside. They told her to cease and desist. They didn't want to see it. They continued to use the old system, knowing it was masking. Again, as I said, you don't need a sophisticated mathematical model to take a look at what was happening in 2021 as deaths and adverse events exploded. Even on a adverse event or a death per million dose basis, it was 55 times worse than adverse events on deaths on flu vaccines. Yeah. So again, you didn't need a sophisticated model to show you that, and yet they hid behind that sophisticated mathematical model and continued to claim, as we showed Peter Marks talking to the vaccine and the injection injured, till December 22nd, we're just not seeing a safety signal.
Yeah. So he talks about Peter Marks denying that there were any safety signals, and that during the hearing they played a montage of him denying. I have it for you guys.
There is incredible BS out there about like thousands of people dying, etc. That just ain't true.
No one's denying that adverse events can occur. That doesn't mean that any given individual might not have had something related to the vaccine. I'm not denying anything. The issue is that the number of cases have not risen to a number that leads to a clear differentiation that it's a signal. There's not a clear signal. It just says that we don't have a signal. We continue to query the various databases. The large databases still have not seen a signal.
You couldn't really tell. You just couldn't tell whether there was a signal or not. It's something that's been reported, but not as something that is clearly vaccine related.
So, basically, the outcome of the hearing, public exposure of this data and documentation in the congressional record of active concealment. But you're not to question anything. You just trust the science. Just trust the science.
Yeah. I want to know more, because
Yeah.
you have Ron Johnson saying that these rates exploded. That's not a number. They exploded. Okay. He says 55 times worse. So I've been able to track down a couple of studies that show that elevated myocarditis risk. One study is a comparison window of only 42 days. So just bear that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
But 2.7 excess cases of myocarditis per 100,000 versus the matched unvaxxed people. Baseline, that's an increase per 100,000, but the actual number of cases, say for example, in 2020 to 2021, the number of cases per million is 106. So per 100,000, it's 10.6. So an increase from 10.6 to 13.3. While it is there, it is not the giant alarming explosion of cases that Ron Johnson is saying in that clip that you showed.
Well, of course, the video clips, right? Those are going to be the ones with those catchphrases that are going to grab everybody's attention and feed the narrative, right?
Yeah.
I think when I watched, I sat and watched the majority. It was very painful to watch the whole hearing. They did bring a lot of data from VAERS. And the thing that, when you're looking statistically, it was a Harvard study that looked at VAERS, because VAERS is a voluntary system. So as a healthcare provider, if you were to report to me, hey, my face froze up at, a day after I got that vaccine, whether or not I report to VAERS or not is voluntary. And in order for me to report to VAERS, it's like a 25-minute, very painful process. So a lot of the case reports that may or may not have been vaccine related never got reported. This Harvard study said that it's only about 10% was what they came up with, actually get reported to VAERS. So when you look at numbers on VAERS, so that if you're going to look statistically at did it increase or not, do we have a statistical significant increase, you have to add the fact that maybe the numbers that we're seeing on VAERS are way underreported. The whole VAERS system needs to be revamped, because it's not adequately, it certainly isn't adequately monitoring for safety post-marketing. If it's voluntary and it takes a practitioner 25 minutes to make one report, that's not going to capture what we're after.
That's true. But also the people who report to VAERS aren't necessarily practitioners. They're just people who have experienced, who claim to have experienced an adverse health event.
Right.
Now, they have to spend 25 minutes to be able to get an entry in there, but they can say whatever the hell they want in that 25 minutes, and it becomes part of VAERS. So this is just people telling stories, which I'm not saying that it's incorrect. It's just that it's not scientific. There's no study being done with VAERS. VAERS is a place. it could just as well be described as a message board when you think about it.
Right. Now, the one thing I think that's important, if there's anything to take away from that hearing, the fact that they looked at the current algorithm and they said, maybe we're not capturing data the best we could. In fact, the statistician that this doctor used was the one who made the original algorithm in the first place. And he improved upon it and said, hey, try this because I think this is going to capture the data that we're missing because we've got these two vaccines that we're trying to track, right? And they refused to look at it because they didn't want to inhibit vaccine uptake. I think that's the big takeaway from that hearing.
Yeah, sure. And when you look at it from that perspective, thinking of it as a narrative, a way to move the narrative.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start by saying, this is me, Patrick, speaking. There's no good reason to take a vaccine ever under any circumstances.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Now, but that doesn't mean that the vaccines are causing myocarditis. Those are two separate things. And it's okay for those two things to be the case. But I do like the fact that the narrative is moving in the direction of the vaccines are unnecessary. They suck. Stay away from friggin' vaccines. So I like that. Scientifically speaking, though, this is just theater, in my opinion.
We definitely need more data, which is what, RFK is all about. Mm-hmm. All right. So our next story today is David Morans, former senior advisor to one Anthony Fauci at NIAID, that's the National Institute of Allergies and Infectious Disease. And he was Fauci's advisor from 2006 to 2022. Well, he got indicted April 28th. He faces felony counts, including conspiracy against the United States, destruction, alteration, and falsification of records in federal investigations, concealment, removal, mutilation of records, and aiding and abetting, all related to COVID-19 origins, gain-of-function research, and the EcoHealth Alliance grant that was tied to the Wuhan Institute of Virology on bat coronavirus studies. Mm-hmm. So we have a video about Morans.
Former top advisor to Dr. Anthony Fauci now facing criminal charges. This over an alleged cover-up involving research into the origins of COVID. Rich Edson on this story. Intriguing, Rich. What you find out there in Washington?
Now, it is, Bill. The Justice Department has charged David Morans, a doctor, with conspiracy, claiming he concealed federal records to counter evidence that COVID-19 may have leaked from a lab in China, all to help restore a controversial coronavirus grant. Morans, a former aide to Dr. Anthony Fauci, testified before the House's COVID Select Subcommittee nearly 2 years ago about emails he'd sent in February 2021, claiming that he'd learned to make emails disappear after he received Freedom of Information Act requests.
Ever delete or attempt to delete a federal record?
No, but let me explain why. When I came there in 1998, we were instructed to delete emails or to move them into PST files frequently because they jammed the computer.
The Justice Department says Morans used his personal Gmail account to exchange non-public information. The indictment also claims an unnamed co-conspirator gave Morans wine for his, quote, behind-the-scenes shenanigans, then suggested he could push scientific commentary in a prominent medical journal advocating that COVID-19 had natural origins. That's a competing claim with the lab leak theory. The indictment says the co-conspirator could also provide meals at top restaurants in Paris, New York, and Washington, D.C. In April 2020, the NIH terminated that bat coronavirus grant awarded to EcoHealth Alliance, who then contracted the Wuhan Institute of Virology to conduct that research in China. From the start of the pandemic, its president, Peter Daszak, worked to discredit any theory that COVID-19 had leaked from that lab.
Okay. Bill? All right. Thank you, Rich.
And Peter Daszak was actually the not charged co-conspirator number one listed in the indictment. So after NIH actually suspended EcoHealth's grant, Morans allegedly used his personal Gmail account to back-channel communications to evade FOIA and congressional scrutiny on pandemic origins. So I got a couple of those we can take a look at.
Mm-hmm.
Do your thing, Patrick.
Email from David Morans. This is sent February 25th, 2021 to Gerald T. Cush and CCing Peter Daszak of the EcoHealth Alliance. He says, it's more in the line of government secret, but too complicated to explain in an email. But I learned the tricks last year from an old friend, Marge Moore, who heads our FOIA office and also hates FOIAs. Incidentally, Tony and I and a few other people here all got a huge FOIA yesterday seeking any and all documents, emails, etc. that mention the words Wuhan Institute or WIV. It appears that this comes from folks tied to politics who want specifically to know anything about anything NIH has had to do with the Wuhan Institute of Virology or any scientists working with WIV, Wuhan Institute of Virology. The original request was, I think, far broader, but we negotiated it down to just those two terms. You names will not show up in this FOIA, at least not. Your names will not show up in this FOIA, at least not from my info. Another email, David Morans, Gerald T. Cush. Good news, keep it up.
And Gerald T. Cush, they believe, is co-conspirator number 2 in this indictment, by the way.
Love it. Had a long off-the-record chat with PBS NewsHour's Nick Schifrin this morning. The craziness is receding at least a bit. I forgot to clarify in my email yesterday, by the way, this is not referring to that email I just read, that both my Gmail and phone calls are now safe. Text is not, as it can be FOIA'd, as can my government email. This guy is such a dumbass.
Yeah.
So you and Peter and others should be able to email me Gmail only, with the caveat that no other government employee is copied at a government address, as all government emails are potentially FOIA-able. This guy is a freaking, no, this is a confidential informant right here. No way. No, this guy is not, his indictment is complete, is a sham, and this was a sting operation, or this is all bullshit. But nobody's this stupid, or maybe they are. I don't know.
Here's another one.
Okay, so from David Morans to Peter Daszak.
I love that, Peter Moron, or David Morons. We're going to call him David Moron from here on out.
P.S. He's put this in an email, according to the narrative. P.S. I forgot to say there is no worry about FOIAs. I can either send stuff to Tony on his private Gmail.
Now referring to Fauci. Mm-hmm.
Referring to Tony who? Oh, Tony
Fauci, yeah.
Or hand it to him at work or at his house. He's too smart to let colleagues send him stuff that could cause trouble.
And here's the last one.
February 24th, 2021. You are right. I need to be more careful. However, as I mentioned once before, I learned from our FOIA lady here how to make emails disappear after I am FOIA'd, but before the search starts. So I think we are all safe. Plus, I deleted most of those other emails after sending them to Gmail.
So just so everybody knows, FOIA goes all the way back to 1966. It's a law that says records that are created by federal agencies belong to the public, not the officials. This is how we're supposed to be holding these ding-dongs accountable. And they're trying to get around FOIA by using Gmail. And there's the Gmails in the indictment. These were all listed in the indictment. So, yeah, they were able to get a hold of his Gmails.
I think you pretty much can get around FOIA by confining your conversations to chat in World of Warcraft PvP server. Other than that, nobody. You're hilarious.
Well, I remember when I first woke up learning about how they would say corny instead of comey to get around FOIA,
Okay.
but
And
they
Q
but they
predicted
still figured it out though, didn't they?
that because of Q pointing out, calling him James 8 corny.
Right. Yeah. So, in this whole thing, I was thinking about, okay, what is all this? Like you just said, is this guy just an operative? Morans could flip on, because in the indictment or in a lot of the other emails, he's talking about senior advisor, that would be Fauci, and that Fauci was aware of how they were all communicating. It's pushing out the narrative on COVID origins, again, moving it from that back burner right on up to the front burner again, right? At the same time, in the same week, we've got Johnson out there talking about, they were hiding safety signals on the vaccines. Now we've got this move in front burner. And then the other thing I found really interesting is I couldn't find any statements at all. In fact, Peter Daszak has been very, very quiet. That not charged co-conspirator number one in Morin's indictment. So all I could think was, gee, I wonder if Daszak's talking,
Oh, I mean, Daszak seems to me like he's just like Tony Fauci. He's on the exact same echelon. In me and our crazy conspiracy theory, Peter Daszak was a name you heard every single day.
Yep.
It's funny how we truthers think that we're not being accounted for in the narrative. Back in 2021, when this was all going down, it was mainstream truther, I guess you could say, to know who Peter Daszak was and to know that Tony Fauci was busy experimenting on baby beagles and all of this over-the-top stuff designed for one purpose, to get us enraged at the medical industrial complex. And it's coming to fruition now. It's being moved over to the normie space.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, before we move on to the next story, I'm just going to take a little break and let you tell us about what you got going on over at Tulip Blooms and Epic Minerals.
Yeah, guys, go to tulipblooms.shop because you are just about to run out of time before you can send your mother the best Mother's Day gift basket she's ever received. Everything at tulipblooms.shop is in the Mother's Day sale availability. Just go up to the top left and click on Mother's Day special, and you could pick 3 products, put them in a Mother's Day basket, bam, instant 10% off. Promo code DOSES, 10% more off. But if you get 4 products, it goes up to 15% off. Promo code DOSES still applies, 10% more off. And then finally, you get 5 or more products in your Mother's Day gift basket, 20% off. Then don't forget, promo code DOSES, another 10% off. And if you order right now or before Sunday at the very, very least, you will get this basket to your mother in time for Mother's Day. So don't forget, Mother's Day is coming right up. Time is now. The Mother's Day basket at tulipblooms.shop. Promo code DOSES.
And then the other thing that we were going to talk about is how do we keep those sniffles away? Patrick?
Yes, indeed. Well, if you go to epicminerals.net, you can get our amazing Zeolite Extra Spray, which is a humic and fulvic acid supplement spray in deionized water with just a tiny bit of zeolite, which is a micronized mineral that binds to toxins, as do humic and fulvic acid. And they just flow out of your system harmlessly as, you just pee them out, basically. And I have not gotten sick since I started using this, except for one time, which was the night before the 2024 election. And I got sick because I worried myself sick. Other than that, I haven't been sick in like 2.5 years. It's because of this
I just ordered mine. I'm waiting for him to come any day now. Any day I'm going to have mine here.
There you go. And
I got 2 bottles because I was like, I need 2. I got to stock
one,
up.
Yeah, you want one at your desk. You want one in your bathroom. It's just really good to have this around. And the results have been absolutely staggering. So yeah, that is epicminerals.net. Promo code DOSES for 10% off. And by the way, every time you use that promo code DOSES, A quarter of that sale goes straight into an account that pays the bills at Doses of Deception. So you're supporting what you love too. So tulipblooms.shop, epicminerals.net, promo code DOSES in both cases.
Thank you so much, Patrick.
You bet.
All right, our next story. Patrick and I were trying to dissect this backstage before we started. So the National Cancer Institute's SEER data, and that stands for Surveillance, Epidemiology, and End Results, for 2023 was released on April 22nd, just a couple days ago. You may be wondering why 23 data is just now being released. Well, SEER allows a standard 22-month reporting delay after the end of the diagnosis year. So cases of cancer that got diagnosed in 2023 were first submitted to the National Cancer Institute in November of 25. The data then gets processed and released to the public in the spring of the following year. So according to this data, what they say is that overall cancers in those under age 50 jumped 6.4% overall from 21 to 23. And that was, as you guys can see, where the mRNA injections began. That was during the mass vaccine uptake from 21 to 23. Brain tumors up 19.5%, colon rectal cancers up 19.4%, ovarian cancers up 12.8%. And I had played a video on the Doses show on Tuesday where Katie Couric was reporting that she was very concerned about the fact that there were 17, yes, Patrick, 17 cancers increasing in people under the age of 50. So,
Of course.
Patrick, you're looking at this data. You're a math guy. You've got all that math background, which I don't. And you're looking at this, you're going, I don't know that it's that statistically significant.
Yeah, let's take a quick look. So what we're looking at is on the x-axis, you have going from the year 2000 all the way to the year 2023, with a big red line stuck right around the end of 2020, if I'm reading that correctly, that says mRNA injections begin. And at the beginning, right before the red line, so take, for example, the one with the steepest increase, which is colon and rectum cancer. It's the one with the
blue line.
Triangles. It's the blue line with the blue triangles. And it started at, so look at the y-axis, and that is rate per 100,000. So if you're at 6, that means 6 cases in 100,000. In a population of 100,000. What they don't tell you here, as far as I can tell, is what is the actual cohort studied? Meaning, did they study only 100,000 people? Did they study 1 million people? Did they study 2 million people? How did they go about studying these populations? But let's just assume, just for grins, that they're talking about 1 million people. I have no idea, by the way. It says cancer site comparison, recent trends in SEER age-adjusted incidence rates by cancer site, delay-adjusted SEER incidence rate, both sexes, all races, ethnicities, ages under 50. They're not telling us how many people they're looking at. That's important. However, they're saying rate per 100,000. So in the case of colon and rectum cancer, it goes from approximately 9.8. Over the next 2 years, it goes up to 11.8. So it goes up 2 per 100,000.
Right.
That's not that much, considering the fact that you don't know it was the mRNA injections that caused it.
Right.
Furthermore, are we studying only people who took the vaccine, or are we not? Is there
They're
any
not. I know this much is that SEER is only going to be reporting cases of cancer. So they're not looking at of the cases that were reported, which ones had vaccines and which one hadn't. They're just putting that red line there as a correlation, not a causation.
So what
right?
but a ton of different things changed between when the mRNA injections hit and when in 2023.
Right.
We became much more likely to go to the doctor to say, I don't feel good, for all I know. What could account for that additional 2 cases per 100,000? It's enormous, just
Right.
ridiculously enormous. So
Right. But
I
the
don't
narrative,
yeah, the
again,
narrative is mRNA.
same week, Patrick, same week. We've
Absolutely.
got Ron Johnson and the COVID vaccine safety signals being hidden. We've got Morans hiding FOIA about the where the virus began, and we don't want people to see. And then we've got this with the big red line. Do you see the narrative? Do you see that pot getting moved on the front of the stove and the heat getting turned up?
That I do.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. I think that's what this is about. All right. So our next story is that a spokesperson for HHS actually confirmed for Children's Health Defense that a federally defined definition for ultra processed food is imminent. RFK actually confirmed in the budget hearings last week that there will be a mandatory front of package labeling regarding ultra processed foods. This is a video recently when he was on with Rogan. Let's take a look.
By April, we will have a federal definition of ultra-processed foods, first time in history. And as soon as we do that, we're going to do front-of-package food labeling. So every food in your grocery store will have a label on it. It'll have maybe a green light, a red light, or a yellow light, telling you whether or not it's going to be good for you.
Oh, wow.
And that, and it's going to evaluate all of the ingredients, et cetera. So, I think we're not going to change this overnight, but we're going to change it pretty quickly. And if you want to be healthy, we're going to give you the information to take control of your own health.
It's appreciated. It really is.
It would make shopping a little easier. I wouldn't have 3 different apps where I'm scanning.
Yeah, I would love to know the definition of ultra processed. If he could even take a stab at it for me, because
Yeah.
ultra processed is what they mean. You don't want processed food. I know a process. It's called cooking. That's a
Right.
process. So we really got to tighten up our language a little bit where that's concerned. I'm going to, at the end of the show, I'm going to talk about trans fats. And that's a process as well. And is it really all that bad for you? Do we really know what's bad for us? So
Yeah, it depends on the process, right?
Damn straight.
All right. So finally, we had this. Go ahead, Patrick.
Hello. Donald J. Trump, Truth Social, for months. Senator Bill Cassidy of the great state of Louisiana, a very disloyal person whose Trump endorsement got him elected, but later voted to impeach President Trump on what has now proven to be a total hoax and scam, has stood in the way of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s nominee, Casey Means, for the important position of U.S. Surgeon General. I nominated Casey, a strong Maha warrior, at the recommendation of Secretary Kennedy, who understands the Maha movement better than anyone, with perhaps the possible exception of me. Nevertheless, despite Senator Kennedy's intransigence and political games, Casey will continue to fight for Maha on the many important health issues facing our country, such as the rising childhood disease epidemic, increased autism rates, poor nutrition, over-medicalization, and researching the root causes of infertility and many other difficult medical problems. Casey, thank you for your service to our nation. President Donald J. Trump.
Well, he was clearly throwing Bill Cassidy under the bus, so I went just digging a little bit. Cassidy has received substantial backing from the pharma health products industry throughout his career, basically does their bidding. So his career total from 2007 to 2024, his campaign committee reported that he has accepted $1,087,874 directly from Big Pharma. But then when you start to factor in other linked sectors like hospital systems, medical associations, and pharma lobbyists, his total haul exceeds $4,057,033. So RFK weighed in on Casey.
And he says, Secretary Kennedy on Twitter, President Trump's Surgeon General nominee, Casey Means, stands as one of the Maha movement's most powerful evangelists. Her book, Good Energy, which exposed the nation's catastrophic decline in metabolic health, has become a Bible for the MAHA movement. After graduating first in her class at Stanford Medical School, Casey walked away from her medical practice because she no longer wanted to be part of a sick care system. She has committed her life to transforming American healthcare. By sabotaging this appointment, Bill Cassidy once again did the dirty work for entrenched interests seeking to stall the MAHA movement and protect the very status quo that has made America the sickest nation on earth. Casey Means will remain an important leader and a close partner as we uncover the root causes of the chronic disease epidemic and make America healthy again.
And then yesterday, Trump announced a new nomination for Surgeon General.
Donald J. Trump on Twitter. I am pleased to announce that I am nominating Dr. Nicole B. Safier, if I pronounced that right, to be the next Surgeon General of the United States of America. Nicole is a star physician who has spent her career guiding women facing breast cancer through their diagnosis and treatment while tirelessly advocating to increase early cancer detection and prevention, while at the same time working with men and women on all other forms of cancer diagnosis and treatments. She is also an incredible communicator who makes complicated health issues more easily understood by all Americans. Dr. Nicole Safier will do great things for our country and help make America healthy again. Congratulations, Nicole. Our country has long been waiting for you. President Donald J. Trump.
Yeah. So I kind of honed in on the all caps incredible communicator. So Nicole Safier was a former Fox News contributor. And all I could think about was, man, what a tough position. Because how does an administration restore trust in agencies that clearly, as we have just talked about for the last 40 minutes, have been caught intentionally lying, right? Or concealing evidence of harm. So she can't be the PR manager for the CDC. She's going to have to be the nation's chief transparency officer in that position.
Okay.
And
I'm so sorry. The Surgeon General has a CDC position? She's like a
no,
spokesman?
but she can't just go out and say, basically, let me be the smooth communicator and make it all okay for you guys to now trust the CDC and the FDA and these public health agencies. At the same time, we're disclosing all of this corruption and all of this deception, right? It's a tough place to be in because she's going to have to try to convince a distrusting public to now trust institutions that have been lying to us in previous administrations. I wouldn't want that job.
Yeah.
No, I would not want that job.
Why is the Surgeon General even important to anyone?
It seems to me to be more of a figurehead position because, from a policy perspective, I don't know that they do any policy. It's just that figurehead. So, having someone, I guess, as Trump said, is a fantastic communicator, incredible, in fact, might be what they need. Yeah. And there's going to have to be some kind of PR as they continue to roll out all of this, because clearly they are, as Dave would call it, declassing, exposing, right? All of this mess, and it's coming faster and faster and faster at us. They're going to need to polish that and make that palatable as they move forward. I just don't know how you bring out the truth, but then still say, hey, but you can trust the FDA now. You can trust the CDC now. I don't know how you thread that needle. This is interesting to watch.
I think it'll be made clear to us at some point.
Yeah. Alrighty, well, that's all I had for this week. So we're going to move into Patrick's segment on the Tux Report. What you got for us this week, Patrick?
Well, I have got. Can you share?
There we go. Yep, I got it.
All right, sweet. So there's this nasty thing called trans fats, and people have been pretty much convinced that they're really bad for you. And I'm not here to tell you that they're not bad for you. I'm going to tell you how I go about looking at these things, because it's really a much more complicated thing than just saying, hey, this is bad for you because they say it's bad for you. It causes high cholesterol and heart disease. The causal claim, well, the standard claim is that industrial trans fats increase the risk of heart disease. Now, heart disease, bad. We don't want heart disease. And industrial trans fats are a way of taking certain normal fats and making them solid at room temperature. It makes them easier to store. It makes them last forever. Well, a long time. So, and then this claim that trans fats increase the risk of heart disease, it's because of a different claim that says LDL being high and HDL being low is a cause of heart disease. And that's where things get, in my opinion, quite dicey. So the implied causal chain here is that trans fat consumption increases. Now, that's a for sure thing. You're going to find trans fats after a certain time when they freaking figured out how to hydrogenate certain fats.
Yep, Crisco,
Bam.
baby. Crisco,
Crisco.
baby.
And by the way, I'm still going to use freaking Crisco. All right. I'm also not going to pretend it's health food. But anyway, moving on. So trans fat consumption increases, lipid markers change. So we've got these lipid markers. You've got LDL and HDL. Those are markers. They show up on a blood test. You don't say, oh my gosh, my LDL levels are higher and my chest hurts. That's not a thing. LDL is a completely analytical number. Vascular damage is said to be caused by an imbalance of HDL and LDL. Plaque forms, heart disease incidence increases. Also, that's another thing. The incidence of plaque being associated with heart disease does not mean, and this is very important, does not necessarily mean that the plaque is causing the heart disease. The plaque could be a response to conditions of bad vascularity, and the plaque could be the body's way of trying to fix it. And then getting rid of the plaque in that way is actually doing the exact opposite of what your body wants. But that's a different topic. Okay, so next, by the way, I'm showing slides for those of you just listening. So I'm going to do my best to make it so you don't have to. But what counts as proof? And this is the most important thing that I'll ever say. What does count as proof? So to establish causality, well, strictly speaking, you can never establish causality. But to establish a credible case for causality, you need controlled exposure, meaning you exposed the subject, the cohort of subjects, to trans fats, and you pretty much had them exposed to all the same stuff. You controlled for other things they're exposed to. If you're exposing somebody to trans fats, but they also are sneaking arsenic on the side, you don't have a very good study. So you have to be able to measure
to control
outcomes.
that.
Yes, yes. Now, measured outcomes. For the outcome that we're trying to measure is health. Do you have healthy outcomes, good outcomes? Are you keeling over from a heart attack, or are you playing with your grandkids and jogging and stuff? But higher LDL is meaningless if it's not associated with expected health outcomes. And of course, minimal confounding is just another way of saying controls. And then mechanistic coherence. And what that means by mechanistic coherence is, okay, so you say you have an association between higher LDL and lower HDL. You say you have an association between that and poor health outcomes. What is the mechanism that you're claiming? And is that mechanism credible? Fun fact, the trans fat evidence does not meet these criteria. And I will show you what I mean by that. First type of evidence is the observational cohort. The method there is to ask people what they eat. It's questionnaires. Then you estimate based upon the questionnaire what their trans fat intake is. And then you track heart disease over years, and then you adjust statistically for confounders. And man, when I tell you, adjusting statistically for confounders, you can make anything say anything if you are a bad faith actor where that's concerned. But
That's where all that statistical manipulation comes into play. Yep.
Absolutely. Let's suppose you are an actual angel and your desire is only to find out the truth. Your results are going to be slightly better than a nefarious actor, because adjusting statistically for confounders in an observational cohort like this is essentially impossible, in my opinion.
I would think so too.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Here are the various confounding factors. By confounding, I mean variables that you can't account for or that you don't account for because you didn't think of them. So high trans fat intake correlates with, and here are the things that can confound associating trans fat intake with anything. High trans fat intake tends to correlate with general processed food consumption.
Mm-hmm.
It also tends to correlate with smoking, or at least did. It tends to correlate, high trans fat tends to correlate with lower socioeconomic status. They have shittier health insurance. Being poor has lots of impacts on health outcomes. Sedentary behavior tends to correlate with high trans fat intake. Refined sugar intake tends to correlate with trans fats. What if it was the freaking sugar? What if the trans fats and the sugars are coming together every single time, which is basically true. And then, of course, fried food exposure, which is just another way of saying processed food exposure. So the point that I'm trying to make is that trans fats can have any number of associations with other patterns, and that's where your data gets completely confounded. And because the studies here are observational in nature, you're not allowed to control for anything. Everything that you control for, you have to do on a spreadsheet rather than in a lab or, in a controlled environment. We have measurement problems, of course. Questionnaires. Now, this is obvious, but I have to make sure to point it out. If you're studying large populations using questionnaires, those studies are going to rely on the subject's memory, their ability to tell you what their portion sizes are.
And those will always be minimized.
Yeah. Are you a fat pig? Will you do us a favor, sir, and answer us if you are a fat
I did not
pig?
eat 2 Big Macs, Pat.
Yeah.
I did not.
Yeah, exactly. It'll miss
Just one, only one Big Mac, Patrick.
Just the one Big Mac. Imperfect nutrient databases, of course. The result, exposure. Exposure is estimated. It's not measured. They're guessing their asses off. They're guessing about a guess because the person they're interviewing is guessing, and then the subject, and then the researcher is going to have to do guesses based upon those guesses. It's bad. It's real bad.
Are you guys seeing how these studies and how the results of the studies, how all of this can be skewed? I mean, this is fantastic the way you're walking through this, Patrick. Keep going.
Yeah, it can be really big time skewed. You can skew almost anything. Even if you're trying to find the truth, you're going to skew some stuff most of the time. So the observational studies have shown that higher estimated trans fat intake tends to be associated with higher observed heart disease rates. Observational studies cannot isolate trans fat as not only can't isolate it as the sole cause, they can't isolate it as a cause at all. It simply happens to be in a grab bag of things in a group that has higher heart disease rates.
Interesting.
Evidence type 2, controlled feeding trials. Now they're actually trying to be scientific. They're trying to take a group of people. They're going to randomize their diets. They're going to feed known fat compositions, and they're going to measure biomarkers. And that's where we get into trouble again.
Now we're going back to the HDL, LDL thing, right?
Exactly. So in the first case, they measure health outcomes. Yay. but they can't control it, and confounders are absolutely insurmountable.
So now they're just going to measure biomarkers, but we don't know that those biomarkers actually cause the disease.
Exactly. So trans fats diets tend to be associated with, I shouldn't have written it this way, but, hang on, sorry. This third bullet point needs to be rewritten, but trans fat diets tend to increase LDL, decrease HDL, and worsen lipid ratios. First of all, the first two there already indicate the so-called worsening of lipid ratios. We don't know that those lipid ratios are actually worse, is the point that I'm making there. So the critical limitation is these trials, it's a few weeks. So you look at these diets, you control the diets, you measure their ratios afterwards. You say, okay, these ratios are the thing that causes heart disease. And you're begging the friggin' question. No disease outcomes at all are demonstrated at all. So here's one thing that we have that's strong. Lipid changes seem to be associated strongly with high trans fat intake. That's observed in controlled settings. But, and this is the part where I take us out of the slides, none of that indicates anything about health. Eating tons of Crisco does tend to associate with high caloric intake, or eating lots of cake, so it could be the sugars. It could be if you're dealing with a lot of trans fats, that means you're probably dealing with stuff that has lots of preservatives in it too. Maybe
chemicals,
some of the preservatives aren't that good for you. It's a tough thing to accomplish, but anytime that these influencers or governments or organizations, NGOs, start zeroing in on one thing, saying that one thing is the boogeyman, I think just check to make sure your wallet's still there, because these things are always multifaceted, and it's never, ever all that simple.
That was fantastic. And you're right. I think for all of us to understand, the limitations of the studies that then present to us, here's the conclusion that you should just run with and believe because, science, I think looking at these studies and those limitations is important for all of us, because I think most of us, when we pick up a study, our eyes start crossing and we're going, I don't even want to read this. Can you just get me to the end point? Right. And we just accept that end point without ever questioning, well, how did you actually get there? Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was
so much of the time the people doing the studies are being paid by people who want a very specific result.
Yeah. One way or the other.
Yep, exactly.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that, Patrick.
Oh, thank you.
All right. So we are coming up on the end of the show. I do want to acknowledge $17 rant from LAC BSH. Love both of you. Friday updates are the best. Thank you so much. We are loving doing this show. $17 from Alice Duffy, my two favorite people. Thank you. Thank you to you guys. And once again, it's a new show. If you guys would please hit that thumbs up, hit that little bell, and subscribe to the show. Share it. You can repost it on Rumble. And if you have any questions or comments, if you put it in the chat, only the live viewers see it. But if you put it in the comments below the show, then those who watch on replay also can see what it is you have to say. So that's important too. And all of that interaction with the show helps drive us up in the algorithm so we can get the truth out to more folks. So we appreciate all of your support. Patrick, any final thoughts this Friday evening?
I just love being here on this show. Being able to talk about the medical side of all of this is just, it's a big upgrade for me as a content creator, and just great for all of us as a community. So thank you for doing this show. It's really important.
Oh yeah, I think I think as more is being revealed to us, we're certainly going to have a lot more to talk about, and it's important that we're all learning together, because, man, we do about a lot, and we're all learning the truth. So thank you so much for joining us. What do you got coming up this week, Patrick?
Well, the D-Class show is tomorrow, and
Yes.
so check that out. And then, of
7
course,
p.m. on News Treason Patrick Gunnell's channel and on Joe Rambo's channel on Rumble.
exactly, Sunday night, we will be doing Breaking the System, where Eric Carlson talks about Executive Order 13818.
Oh, good.
It's going to be a banger. Do
You
not
guys,
miss that
if you
show.
have not checked out Breaking the System, it is a fantastic. It's focusing on the financials. I cannot praise you guys for doing that show more, because that's another sector that, we're all learning more about, and it's a fantastic show. That's on News Treason Sunday. What time?
That is News Treason Sunday at
7 or 8.
it's somewhere in there.
Somewhere in there, 7 or 8.
7:30 p.m. Central. I think. Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll go look for it. And then coming up on Doses of Deception on Tuesday, 8 p.m. right here on the Doses of Deception channel, we will have Magadai presenting her next herbal adventures. So we hope you guys will join us for all of this amazing content. You guys have a wonderful weekend. We appreciate you being here, and we'll see you next Friday on the next edition of Deception Distilled. Have a great weekend, Patrick.
You too.
Same design again, different words, same